Welcome to the ATA Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Baird, and you're listening to Inside Specialization, our series on the what, why, and how of specializing in a specific field of translation or interpreting. In each episode, members of ATA's Professional Development Committee will interview translation and interpreting specialists. They'll ask about what the work entails, what skills are needed, the pros and cons, and so much more. The goal is to showcase the variety of career paths in translation and interpreting and help working professionals and students understand what's out there, how they can get started, and what they need to succeed. Specialization is arguably the best way to strengthen your translation and interpreting business and stand out from the crowd. We're hoping to bring you one episode a month, and we hope you'll join us on this informative journey. This podcast is brought to you by the American Translators Association. If you'd like to know more about ATA, we'll have some information at the end of the show. All right, now over to the PD Committee and this edition of Inside Specialization.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the ATA Podcast Specialization Series, a special collaboration between the ATA Podcast and ATA's Professional Development Program. I'm Adam Sachs, and I am a member of ATA's Professional Development Committee. We are thrilled to bring you this episode where we will hear about veterinary translation from a veterinary doctor. Joining me today is our special guest, Veronica Leibaschoff, who will tell us about her work in this area. Veronica graduated as a veterinary doctor in 1989 at the School of Veterinary Sciences at the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. For 12 years, she practiced small animal medicine and had the privilege of working closely with animals and providing them with the care they need. She then specialized in scientific translation and was able to combine her medical knowledge with her passion for communication and languages. Over the past 20 years, she has been dedicated exclusively to the field of veterinary translation and interpretation. Welcome, Veronica. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Adam. I want to really express my gratitude for giving me this chance to talk with you all.
Of course, we're much obliged on our end. Start by, can you describe your background to us and tell us how you found your way to veterinary translation?
Yes, of course. Well, I am not a native English speaker, so I expect to share my journey with you and the experiences that led me to where I am today, and hope the audience engages in the field of veterinary translation, which is so vast indeed. I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where I lived all my life. My parents usually took me on trips abroad, and it was a big motivation to travel with them, especially for the opportunity to speak in English and absorb the culture of its city. And after finishing high school, I went straight to university, as you mentioned, to study veterinary medicine. I was really interested in medicine, and I thought that veterinary science would let me learn a lot about living things. I also loved outdoor life and appreciated horses very much, so becoming a vet sounded like a good idea. But honestly, back then, I didn't really know much about what a vet actually did. At that point, there were no canine or feline members in my family. I had practically never set foot in a veterinary clinic. So it was 6 years of university study that kept me motivated, discovering the anatomy of different species, but I wasn't quite sure what my future would be like. Eventually, I graduated and focused on the care of small animals, meaning dogs and cats. I spent time working in vet clinics, learning skills and gaining valuable experience. And then I started my own small animal general practice. I was the only doctor at the clinic and worked with a few assistants, mostly veterinary students. It seemed like the most natural path living in the city. So I practiced with great effort, dedicating hours both to patient care and practice management, and really focused on giving a patient the best care possible. But deep down, I knew this was just one step in my professional journey. a step towards something more.
That seems to lead into my next question. Can you tell us a little bit more about how your career shifted from veterinarian to translator?
Yes, quite a rare shift, isn't it? Yes, here's where it gets interesting. My enthusiasm for veterinary medicine started mixing with my fascination for languages. I'd get these English articles about vet medicine and marketing, and I'd think, hey, I could translate this into Spanish. Actually, I tried to do translation of some materials between patient visits in an amateur way. And then attending conferences exposed me to the captivating work of simultaneous interpreters. I found their job amazing. I kept hearing how they did their job. And at that point, I felt curiosity about the next chapter of my career. So I signed up for a super intense month-long summer course in simultaneous interpretation. And that's where my new career kicked off. This is translation. After that, I started studying scientific translation, and my passion for it just took off. I've always been into languages. It was English at school, 7 years at the Alliance Française, and a brief encounter with German. For a while, I was juggling translation studies with patient care. I mean, I really love animals. I had my own pets and I enjoyed understanding how medicine works. But at the same time, this interest in translation kept growing. Then I started getting small translation jobs from colleagues in the pet food industry. These were veterinarians that know me from university. And after about 2 years, I made a big decision. I left my vet clinic behind and focused on becoming a full-time translator. I took a bunch of interpretation courses and slowly got into medical interpretation because that's where I felt more confident. Until I was guided by a mentor, I was encouraged to specialize in veterinary translation as clients in the veterinary field valued my professional background. So my work as a translator and interpreter started picking up pace, and I started getting more and more jobs requests in this field.
So you mentioned some of the the small projects that you were getting from acquaintances you had in veterinary school. How did they know to reach out to you for this? Were they were aware that you were now pursuing an interest and fascination with translation and interpreting as well?
Well, yes, I managed to communicate my new interest. I did a trainee on veterinary dermatology, so I was connected at a teaching hospital to university. I kept going to veterinary conferences or congresses, so I was in contact with and with all them, and many of my peers were already working at companies like pet food companies. So, well, we kept in contact and they knew about my new career.
Sounds like it was really organically developing symbiotic relationship with everyone. How nice. Tell us about some challenges that you've faced along the way, both from pursuing the background, your work in veterinary medicine, and then also making the shift into translation and interpreting.
Yes, well, indeed, the biggest challenge for me was doing interpretation work in a booth. I mean, it scared me. Fear paralyzed me. I tried and tried and kept trying, and it took me years to feel comfortable doing it. But well, having that vet medicine background really helped. But you know what's funny and what is a challenge still today? When people find out I'm a vet and a translator, they are like, wait, what? It's like they cannot connect the dots. So I explain it's a niche thing, a specialized area, and that usually makes more sense to them. They imagine a veterinarian with a pet, and then they see a translator, and it's they make strange faces to
Do
me.
they think, I mean, I'm wondering, do they think that you're translating the thoughts of a dog, that's what's meant by veterinary translation, as opposed to, what all of us in the professional language industry know is like it involves documents, it involves marketing collateral, whatever. It's you're obviously not translating what animals are saying, but is that kind of the look that you see on their faces when you say that?
I think that veterinary always brings us a puppy into our minds, and we connect with that emotions and feelings about puppies. And so the translator is so apart from that. But well, then I explained that yes, it is a rare combination, and that translation science. Translation is needed in veterinary sciences, so at the end they can understand. And well, it is a rare combination and it is a niche thing that's true.
A rare but definitely useful combination. I mean, with any specialized area, there are always going to be unique terminology, and when the vast array of animals that that you deal with as a vet, I'm sure there's a lot of interesting and important work to be done there in terms of providing a clear and accurate message through language.
Yes, that's the point, that we need to think of veterinary sciences not just a puppy or a kitten, but a wide scope of science, and that it's very, very important for human health, for human food, for uh, even for the development of vaccines, etc. So it's a lot of genetics in it, a lot of research, and at the end we eat protein that is of animal origin. So it is much, much more than a kitten purring.
So that kind of brings us to the next question that I had, which is if you can speak to the importance of having a background in veterinary sciences to specialize in this area, and the degree to which, I mean, the one area that gets where I see quite a bit of demand is just general medical translation. So to what degree does veterinary translation dovetail into general medical translation, or vice versa, or to what degree do they, like, what are some ways in which they're quite distinct from one another?
Yes, they share many things because, as I always say, most of domestic animals, or all domestic animals indeed, are mammals, as we are, as humans are. So we need to think that we share the same physiology, same mechanisms in cell mechanisms, and so we have a lot of that we share with medicine, with human medicine indeed. So, as I mentioned, being a vet isn't just about cuddling and playing with animals. When someone tells me they want to be a vet, I ask, okay, do you like medicine? Because that's what it's all about: anatomy, immunology, genetics, surgery, pharmacology. So, vets handle both small animals like dogs and cats and large animals like horses, cows, pigs, sheep. This is why we call it small animal medicine or large animal medicine.
Okay.
And this comprehensive background proves invaluable for translation. You grasp the concepts and terminology profoundly. Even though you don't have to have a university degree, but having one is a big advantage. In my line of work, this is medical and vet translation. They are linked. Humans and animals have so many similarities that makes translation easier. You just need to know the specific terms, especially in stuff like animal husbandry, which deals with raising animals for food. But they share a common root of knowledge.
Very interesting. Um, what are some typical translation assignments that you do, and who are some common types of clients? I mean, you mentioned before, you made reference to some former colleagues sending you certain work and doing a little bit of work with food related to the food that animals eat. Like any particularly noteworthy or interesting projects you've done in this area?
I mostly work directly with clients. I haven't done much with translation agencies yet, but clients like the fact that I'm a vet. They know they can trust my translations, which saves them time. They say I tell them that my translations are already revised by a veterinarian, so it assures them a reduced oversight in the translation process. My clients are mostly pharma companies that have a veterinary division, also pet food companies, as I already mentioned. I still work a lot with pet food companies, and the poultry industry is another big area. There is a lot of research and development in the field of animal production, since animals need quality feed in order to produce efficiently. There is a need for vaccine programs in order to support animal health in intensive production programs. So, and it's very important what animals eat. That's another industry that needs a lot of translation too. And well, yes, you asked me an interesting project. I can say that one of the coolest things I did was in the US. I was hired by my client to translate for their clients coming from Latin America. And we visited a massive factory that supplies a key ingredient, one ingredient for animal nutrition worldwide. We saw there the wagons that carry the ingredients in bulk, tons of ingredients over to the ports directly for international freight, directly from the factory. So I keep going to conferences and I enjoy hanging out with the vets at these events or at the events where I do interpretation. We speak the same language. And studying veterinary medicine is about a logical framework of thinking, which I apply to other areas. There's always a need for an initial assessment, diagnosing the situation, identifying suitable treatments, and establishing a prognosis. So that keeps alongside with me.
All very, very interesting. And how do you keep current in your area to maintain your expertise as things evolve over time, such as in the form of medical and language technology? You do mention going to attending conferences, which I'm sure is one way that you keep up with certain things that are going on. But what other things do you do to keep your pulse on how things are evolving, both in the field of veterinary science and language services?
Yes, well, I'm very interested in the advancements in medicine. Beyond the I don't practice anymore, but when I attend to the events and when I do written translation, that keeps me up to date with medical advancements and emerging trends in veterinary sciences. I am a member of a board of a small animal association in my country. So that keeps me connected with the last trends in veterinary science or in the area of small animals. And for example, during the pandemic, small animal vets played a huge role because everybody wanted a pet and needed a pet. And these generated high levels of stress and burnout among the veterinarians. This was a real important issue. And mental health, for instance, in small animal vets, it's a big issue today. So I am aware of the news on the veterinary side. And on the translation side, I keep taking courses for translators. There's always something new to learn or a new tool to try. I feel I belong there too. We share the same passion for communication.
That's great. Sounds like continuous excitement. I had not thought about the impact on veterinarians' mental health as a result of the pandemic and people wanting to get more pets, but that makes sense. Do you have any thoughts regarding the impacts that you see from machine translation and artificial intelligence on your field specifically?
Yes, well, I think in most fields, machine translation and CAT tools are of great help. Despite the availability of machine translation for everybody these days, you still need a real translator to check the work. AI tools streamline work processes and enhance quality, but having a human eye and brain to make sure everything's right is still crucial. So we can work with those tools, but we need to use our brain and eyes before delivering a translation.
And what are some of the skills that you've developed that feel unique to your particular specialization, where if you had never pursued a career in veterinary medicine prior to becoming a translator, and instead you had just dove right into translation and interpreting, what are some skills that would be and approaches that you think might be different and that you have brought to bear in the work that you do as a language service professional?
Oh, yes. Well, I think that I can think as a veterinarian and I can put my hat as a translator. So it's like different mindsets, and I'm very glad to know them both. I have 12 years of veterinary practice experience. As you said, I had the privilege of working closely with animals and providing them with the care they need. And additionally, over the past 20 years, I've dedicated exclusively to the field of veterinary translation. And what I love most is bringing two languages together that mainly is English and Spanish, with a third language that is the language of medicine. And languages, medical knowledge, veterinary science, and different cultures, I do enjoy them all. And I believe that the crossroads of these disciplines enriches my work.
So great. Well, those are all the questions that I have today. Veronica, was there anything else you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, I expected that if there are some medical translators hearing this podcast, that they may feel curiosity about veterinary medicine and the whole scope that I mentioned, that they can also work into. And also, well, general translators may be interested because if they like animals, they will feel attracted by this specialization.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your insights on this really interesting and enchanting field. Really appreciate hearing from you about everything.
Thank you, and thank you, ATA, for the opportunity.
You've been listening to Inside Specialization, our series on the what, why, and how of specializing in a specific field of translation or interpreting. Big thanks to everyone involved in the production of this episode. ATA's PD committee developed and coordinated the interview. Mixing and editing was done by Derek Platts. ATA headquarters provided editorial and technical support. Now, if you learned anything new in today's podcast, I bet there's somebody out there who would like to know it too. Don't be stingy. Tell them about us. I've gotten to know so many great podcasts that way. I promise they'll thank you for it. And if you're not an ATA member, listen up. I've been a member for over 20 years. I can honestly say that ATA launched my freelance career, and I've never looked back. Nowadays, the demand for translators and interpreters is at an all-time high, but finding quality work isn't easy. ATA membership can make a difference. And ATA isn't just for translators or interpreters. Individuals, companies, and organizations can become members. We have teachers, professors, hospital administrators, language company owners, technology developers, as well as language companies, universities, hospitals, and government agencies. Go to ATA's website, atanet.org, for details. Or check out past episodes of this podcast where we talk about the benefits of membership and what's currently happening in the association. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Talk to you again soon.